For those of you who do enterprise security, you know the importance of certain primitives like authentication and encryption and so on. One really important primitive that we've noticed is the file, that contains the content that drives your business, drives the organization. I have here an expert from a company called Votiro. You're going to want to stick around and listen to. He's going to help us how across the hybrid infrastructure we're all running now and trying to do zero trust. He's got some really, really good ideas, and he's part of a company that's implemented an approach to zero trust that I think you're going to like. So I hope you stick around. Hi, this is Ed Amoroso from TAG. Welcome to our discussion. I have a friend here, Eric Avigdor, and I want to make sure I say his name right. It's such a cool name. He's the VP of Product Management at Votiro. We're going to ask Eric to share with us some insights into zero trust and, in fact, content that's in files. I think you all are going to enjoy it. Eric, thanks for making some time. I appreciate you coming to visit us today.
Absolutely. I appreciate being on the show.
Eric, let's start. Just give us a 101 on the company, and then we can get into some of the tech.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name's Eric. I run product management for Votiro. We are the zero trust content security company, and let's explain a bit what that means. We apply a zero trust approach, philosophy, principles to data. Zero trust started mainly from focusing on identity and access and trusting no one and limiting access to what can be accessed. We believe the same approach should be taken on data by ensuring that no file is trusted in the context of preventing malware, ransomware, phishing attacks, and preventing privacy and compliance risks. And if you think about everywhere where files exist, you'd be amazed. 80% of your data is unstructured data. It is files. And that all of those files can carry a long list of risks.
What's amazing, Eric, is most companies, I would say from small to medium, even large companies, the biggest ones, are coming to realize that they don't own the infrastructure. People are home on their broadband, they're on Slack, they're on Zoom, like we're talking right now on a basically a hosted video platform. I think, is that kind of the driver here, that your files are going to be bouncing all over the place from one place to the next? And it does strike me that most companies don't have a good means for protecting it. Do I have that right? Is that sort of the impetus for what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the old days, when everything was on premise in a server room, that was the entry point or the risky entry point or the exit point was well defined. Nowadays, that is not the case. Your data is everywhere. It's in the cloud. It's in SaaS applications. It's in third-party facing portals. It's in cloud services. And in most cases, the data does not move through a straight line into your endpoint and out of your endpoint. It moves between services through APIs and across domains. And that data needs to be secured even when it is moving in between these services. And I would say, back to your point, large companies, small companies,
yeah.
The problem is very different when you think about the size of a company. If you're a large company, you most probably have hundreds or thousands of cloud applications, which is one problem to solve. In what I'm seeing in the mid-market or SMB space is that many of these companies were born in the cloud. They never had a data center. So from day one, that data in the cloud problem exists and needs a solution.
Now, we were talking previously, you and I, about some of the threats that a company would worry about. And I loved how you guys break it into a couple different use cases. Like in my mind, I think immediately malware, but I think there's more to it than that. Maybe take us through I think there's two primary use cases with malware and privacy, but explain that. I think that's very, very interesting to hear.
So traditionally, these two problems were viewed as two separate issues. One is a SOC security team, CISO problem, the malware piece. Then that second piece is data privacy, which was a compliance problem for the lawyers. And for those that
PII, other stuff in the file, like that.
PII, PHI, PCI, right? Credit card information, health, X-ray images, social security numbers. Now, that is becoming more and more an overlapping problem that is now both a a security problem and a data privacy problem. But these two problems really are two sides of the same coin. If I'm a hacker and I'm trying to exfiltrate data from your organization, my first step would be deploying a weaponized file. How do I do that? I find an entry point. I send you an email, a phishing email. I send you a Slack message with a SharePoint link on it, and then malicious content can be downloaded. Maybe even I'll be sending your HR team a resume through an applicant portal, which is weaponized. That content would then be used in order to deploy malware, ransomware, in order to exfiltrate data. But the second side of the problem is these files also contain PII, PHI, PCI. How do we protect them? But how do we protect them not once a year, once a quarter, once an audit? How do we protect them in real time, in motion, every day, every minute?
Has it been your observation, the first one seems to take on the flavor of malicious and deliberate. The second one seems to take on maybe more the flavor of just a mistake. You're fat-fingered or you included something you shouldn't have included. Do I have that sort of right? It's probably not perfect. Like, I don't think people accidentally weaponize a file, but I think they do accidentally include PII. So is that also a dimension of what you're dealing with here?
So very much so, but I will give, two interesting examples. So absolutely, on the PII side, it could be a malicious exfiltration. It could also be, hey, you know what? I'm an HR person. I received a resume. I'm sending it to the hiring manager. It has a social security number on it. Bad. That's not a good situation to be in. But interesting example, one of our customers actually came to us, big financial institution. They work with a third-party contractor, legal firm, for all of their contracts. That legal firm was attacked separately and basically implanted with a weaponized file, which they then used as their template for any contract. Now, this legal firm is now creating contracts and sending contracts unknowingly weaponized to every single one of their customers, which is how this financial institution was impacted. So even though it was unknowingly, it was still a driver and a source for a malware-based attack.
In the past, you and I would have talked about this as sort of disarming the content, reconstructing. I know you guys go way beyond, in a sense, the traditional CDR, but just at a very high level, give a brief summary of what you guys do to sort of, I'm going to use the word fix, because it seems like that's what you're doing. You're kind of fixing the content, but maybe you give a little deeper understanding of the strategy that you use when you encounter something that's either weaponized or has something that needs to be removed.
I think the change in philosophy, if you think about the early days, years ago, 10 years ago, of content disarmament reconstruction.
CDR, we would have called that.
CDR, exactly. Vendors used to create files that were unusable. So they'd find a macro and disable it. Then what do, right? You have a spreadsheet with macros, it doesn't work. Or you take a file and you flatten it. You create an image from that file just so you can view it. But once again, it's not usable.
It was content disarmament, partial reconstruction.
Exactly. And unusable reconstruction.
Yeah, right.
And at the time, we realized that the true essence of what we're doing, aside from obviously providing security, is actually delivering the content, which needs to be usable. Because we want the users to have a usable file in real time and not to go beg IT for a file that's been blocked and analyzed. So instead of looking for known bad, we completely changed the paradigm to looking for known good. We don't need to find malware, ransomware. What we look for is the known good content in a file, images, media, macros, links, everything that is good content. We analyze it using many different mechanisms, including artificial intelligence and ML models that we've been training for years, over billions of files. And we analyze that content, and once we conclude that that content is indeed the good content that needs to be transferred, we rebuild the file in a way that is safe to be used. By doing so, we leave behind things that we, in some cases, don't even know is malicious on day zero, but we've removed it. And what is interesting is that 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later, many of the antivirus and sandbox engines will wake up saying, oh, this file is malicious. We've already removed it on day zero.
That's a great approach. So tell me a little bit about the implementation. Like, it's a browser kind of thing? Are you doing it with email apps? Where does this realize itself? Like somebody's listening, they say, "Hey, this sounds pretty cool. I want to try it." Where are they usually inserting or plugging this in? How would this be implemented?
So one of the decisions we made early on is that we do not want to be yet another endpoint product.
Yeah,
Endpoint products are
wise
difficult.
move. Very, very wise. Yeah.
Yes, difficult to deploy, difficult to manage and maintain, and upgrades. And so we are an API product, which means we can integrate with any cloud service, any web service, any on-premise service, most of which are pre-built connectors, which are easy to attach natively to email, Office 365 or Gmail, Teams for collaboration tools, cloud storage. So think OneDrive, SharePoint, S3 buckets for unstructured data, your enterprise box location, right? Any one of those can be integrated using APIs, service to service. So we're a cloud service, obviously, we're a SaaS service. That I would say covers 80%, 80 to 90% of the
Is email the biggest one? That's probably where I would put it first, I'm
It
thinking.
used to be. So that used to be a very large, significant use case. I'd say that nowadays we see three main use cases. One being email and collaboration tools.
Oh
Teams
yeah.
is a huge one because most companies have zero
We're
security.
always sharing things over Teams. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, Teams and SharePoint. Then cloud storage is a very big one, which is, hey, I have a new OneDrive location, SharePoint location, Dropbox. I have zero security there. And the third one being third-party facing portals,
Wow.
applicant portals, yeah, customer portals, partner portals. Incoming traffic is the easiest entry point using these. If I'm a hacker and I want to hack into you, I'd send you an invoice through your partner portal
Yeah.
or a resume through the applicant portal, right?
So it's
So
natural for third-party risk management, right? It would seem like that would be that's such a gigantic problem dealing with suppliers. You're always passing things back and it's always unstructured stuff. Do you find TPRM as being a place where people are worried about the content? I don't think traditionally they have been, but maybe they should.
I think it keeps surprising folks when we speak to companies how what a gaping hole that is in their security.
Yeah.
Um, we tend to rely on acronyms, technologies we buy to assume that they have good coverage, right? And in many cases they have good coverage, but what we made a choice from a as a vendor is instead of replacing a DLP platform, a TPRM platform, a sandbox, an endpoint detection tool, we actually augment them because none of these platforms, think about SSE and SASE, none of these platforms actually dig into the unstructured data itself, finding risks within the data itself and dismantling it in real time. So if we think about endpoint detection, we augment endpoint detection by making it more efficient. We dismantle the malicious content before it lands on the endpoint. We disarm the content and make it safe as it's being downloaded through the browser with an SSE product. So every one of these security platforms becomes more efficient because of how we disarm files.
Now, you and I are both security people, but we're going to take our security cap off for a minute and talk about productivity. So you and I would likely have some manager somewhere saying, I'm worried that this is going to reduce our efficiency and all the things that a manager would say. What's the answer to that?
So I love that because that is something we hear every single time. Is
Yeah,
this
right.
is this going to slow us down?
I hear it
And
all the time too. Right.
I sometimes I try setting it up so people ask that question because it is truly it's an opportunity to shine, right? So the reality is that it is not that we don't slow down the business, we actually accelerate it. I know every vendor on the planet will probably say that, and in many cases that is true, but let me give an example. If you have an antivirus and sandbox deployed, and a content is being sent over which contains suspicious objects within it. What happens? That file is now being held back, either
Yeah.
blocked by your antivirus, quarantined in your sandbox. Now the user needs to go beg IT, hoping that it would take them a few hours or a few days to analyze the file and release it. Because of how Votiro works, because of how we sanitize in real time in split seconds, the content is always delivered in real time. The users never need to go back to IT and ask for that file to be released. So that actually drives productivity because content is always available for anyone that needs to use it. If I'm a salesperson waiting for my purchase order, I'm in pain, right? So from a productivity perspective, that really drives productivity. A subset of that is, we just talked about, think endpoint detection, right? You have your false positives and alarms flying off and your analysts analyzing every one of those red flags. When you put such a technology in place, that actually reduces a whole lot of false positives. So your SOC becomes more efficient, your IT is less burnt out.
That's good. What I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to say that things like Teams that you might be staying away from, if I have controls, I can use them. I mean, I'm guessing that's probably another use case that I'm not as fearful to go use cloud services that I would normally have been blocked. I mean, maybe that's another productivity game, but that was the one I was thinking that might, as a manager, would make me very excited to use the platform.
It keeps amazing me how in so many discussions with companies that are new to Votiro, the first thing we poke at is, are you guys using Teams or Slack? Are you using OneDrive, SharePoint? And one of the first thing is, yeah, we use it, but we
Yeah,
limit we limit content exchange. We
it's a
only
security
exchange.
bot. The security is the bot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We don't allow to exchange files over Teams or Slack. Why? Because there's no security around it. Or, yeah, we have a OneDrive location, but we don't allow sharing sensitive data over one. So in essence, these companies are deploying technologies that are intended to improve collaboration and are limiting them to the point where there's almost no point in using them.
That's a very compelling argument. That's a good one. Like that's an ROI right there. I mean, it may not be a quantitative ROI, but it's a massive qualitative one, like the ability to use the kind of tools that people would be doing in sort of a shadow context if you don't have a safe way to do it. I love that. Hey, for people watching who say, I'm in, I want to do it, what do they do? They like go to your website, or do you do POCs? How do you guys engage with new customers? What do you do?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, through the website, reach out. We will be happy to. Usually what we do is we first look at. We go through a quick discovery of where are the riskiest entry points, right? I mean, are we concerned about email mainly, or about your OneDrive deployment, or about your partner portal? And it's actually super easy within minutes to set up a POC where we can come in,
Yeah.
integrate, and even in many cases we can place Votiro in a monitor mode where instead of
Okay.
being in a full active mode where we take action, we can first show the problem, right? Let's see what we found. Let's
That's
see
a
what.
great idea. Yeah. Then you're not disturbing the file, but you can see what would have been done, and then you get comfortable. I
Exactly.
love it. Great idea. That's a good idea. So,
Yeah, and
well, I
we
hope
can show
you
the
do
threats
it.
we found and the privacy risk we found and all of that. And obviously, I think it's important to say, because some folks have a concern about, is this going to disrupt the file?
Mm.
It is extremely rare. We have over billions of files every year, and it is extremely rare to find a file that ended up different from what it should have ended up being. So.
Yeah, glad you said that. Nothing is ever perfect. It's always making sure that it's better than the alternative. So, well, is there anything we covered a lot here, and anything I haven't asked you that I probably should have? I think we covered quite a bit of ground here.
No, this was great, and I think if there's, I know many folks today are thinking about, hey, how shift left, right? Big term. What do I do with that? How do I shift left? I think, and this is not only in Votiro's case, yeah, we support shift left in many different ways, but I think in general, when choosing cybersecurity products nowadays, it is so important to choose platforms that help prevent the problem proactively and not only present the problem to you. There are so many tools out there today that will show you 1,000 problems, and now you have 1,000 new problems to deal with when you don't have the bandwidth. So one of the things we insist on is, yep, we'll show you the problem. We will also solve it in real time.
That is music to my ears. There's way too many detection and response approaches where you just, it's not that you give up, but you assume that you're going to get hacked. So we just get really, really good at responding. You have to do that. But boy, I think our industry could benefit from some more preventive solutions. So glad you guys are doing it. Keep up the good work, Eric. I hope things continue on the same path for you guys. I know you've been growing and I know you're taking on a lot of new customers. For those of you watching, get in touch with Eric, get in touch with Votiro. This is a good idea. I don't see any downside to this sort of thing. People should be trying it. So thanks for making some time for us. I always enjoy connecting up with your company, and nice to see you, Eric.
Same, Ed. We always enjoy the partnership.
Very good. And for those of you watching at home, we'll see you next time.